Very much for coming out this afternoon. Can't express our gratitude enough to say we greatly appreciate your interest in the Cedar Falls schools and providing guidance, input as we continue down this process to look at how we overcome some of the challenges with our facilities in Cedar Falls Community School District. I am Andy Patsy, I'm the superintendent here, and again, thank you very much for coming out. We certainly need your help. We need your help to help determine our next course of action, and again, how we focus on some of the challenges we have as a district. Tonight, in this afternoon, we do not have any preconceived solutions. We had a bond election, a bond referendum that we put on the ballot in September. We know that that did not pass, that was unsuccessful. And today, what we're working on is to help stimulate, generate ideas and solutions from our community to look at the future. We know that as we look at our capacity, our enrollment growth as a community, as a school district, those are challenges we have to overcome. We know with our facilities that don't meet our educational goals, we have some challenges we need to overcome with that as well. So we're going to ask for your input, we're asking for your help to guide us through these processes. The agenda for this afternoon is an overview of our process that we utilized leading up to the bond and what we've done since the bond election. And that I will provide that. Review of some of the challenges we have as a district, and that will be presented by Dean Seaman from Fielding International. Then I want to ask you for input, for your guidance, for your solutions, your options, through a tabletop exercise, and that's why we have some of the paper listed or at your tables, and we'll ask you to kind of group together at that time as well. So to start, some background information. This has been an ongoing process focused on multiple years of work. It started really with a high school discussion, a high school focus, and the district took a setback, a systemic setback, to say we want to have a holistic discussion to review all of our facilities, all pre-K-12 facilities across our community, across our school district. The district hired Estes Construction, the Iowa Construction Advocacy Team known as ICAT, and they are associated with the Iowa Association of School Board. And they help districts across the state look at the facilities, create facility master plans that are sustainable and workable within a community dynamic. From there, we went through a very systemic process, a very intensive process to hire somebody to help work with us on facility planning. That can look at our buildings through a neutral eye, that can understand some of the needs, the challenges, not only that we have as a community, as a school district, but the needs across the country, across the nation, to give us that metric and that understanding. From there, we had our consultant Fielding there gather information, work through a very intensive process to come up with some recommendations for us as a district. And they were really charged with 4 objectives. Number 1, identify our educational goals and how they relate to our facilities. We have very strong educational goals. The community expects excellence. The community of Cedar Falls takes a great deal of pride in education, and we want to ensure that we are continually providing excellence in all and excellence in our education, and the facilities need to be able to match that so we can provide the best opportunities. Understand the impact of potentially 900 students in our school district through enrollment growth. Our community is growing. We're having more and more families move into our community, and we know through projections that 900 students projected are going to be coming to our school district within the next 10 years. Develop scenarios based on enrollment projections and those educational goals with expectations on timeliness, expectations on when things should be implemented, and then finally give us a work plan over the next 10 years with a 50-year vision. We understand that the decisions we're making now, the decisions that we're making over the course of the next several months are going to be impactful for the next 50 years, and we want to make sure that we are making those decisions prudently and wisely as we look to the future. So the process to continue with the finalization of all the work that went into this leading up to the bond election. We work very closely with our district facility committee, and that's made up of community, staff, parents, administration across Cedar Falls. We held 9 building level meetings to gather feedback from all of our staff members to ask them, looking at a myriad of options that were presented in a broad depth of options beyond what was on the bond referendum them to give us feedback. What are your thoughts? How do we pare down multiple options into what would be on a bond referendum? We then went out and had the same conversations with our community. We invited people to come in to 10 public forums and options forums. One of the pictures is down the lower right, and we had good turnout for that. And again, we asked people, give us your feedback, give us your thoughts, looking at all the challenges that we have. What options should we focus in on? What options should we follow through with? And then we also had surveys associated with that to send out, and multiple people participated in those as well. And from all that feedback, we pared it down to a recommendation that went to the facility committee and went to the school board for that September bond election. So what came out of that process and what was placed on the bond ballot were these 5 things. In the first bullet, truly are 2 combined into 1 bullet. We looked at remodeling and adding additions to North Cedar and Orchard Hill Elementary. We have certainly some challenges in both those buildings with the educational learning environments. The intent with this work was to bring them up with square footage to make that equal to our other buildings, our elementary buildings, and to ensure that we have those flexible learning spaces, breakout areas, so we can truly focus in on best educational practices for those kids. We had a new elementary school to accommodate and handle enrollment growth at the elementary level. It's land that is owned, or the elementary would be placed on land that the district owns in the southwest quadrant of town, where the greatest enrollment is occurring and growth is occurring in the city of Cedar Falls, excuse me. We had down on this bond election a new high school to replace the 6-year-old structure we currently have. That building is projected to be over capacity by 2018, 2019 with the student enrollment that we currently have and the growth that is expected to continue to occur. That was done through, again, looking at a site currently with 17 acres and how do we look at expansion in the future for best practice and to ensure that we can have the programs necessary for a comprehensive high school. And then finally, we looked at repurposing the current high school. Through the community forums, through the survey, it seemed during that time people wanted or expressed interest in repurposing that high school. And part of that repurposing was going to be selling of land that we currently own or buildings that we have to move in our administrative offices to take up a section of the building. They have our technology department, which is a very large square footage technology department with a lot of space needed to store computers, a lot of space needed to fix and repair computers, and to house a lot of our technicians. To have our alternative school move into that space, as well as our behavioral intervention center, which is for students that might be at risk or having struggles within the school setting. And that bond we asked for in September was for $118 million. $128 total cost of that. The extra $10 million was going to be utilized from our 1-cent sales tax that we have left over. The district has, as all districts do across the state, 1-cent sales tax dollars. We have borrowed against a lot of those funding and those sources to add on to Southdale, add on to Hampton, remodel our junior highs to make sure that Lincoln and Cedar Heights were brought up to the current level of educational quality and classroom learning environment that we have in those buildings. So we don't have a lot of latitude with 1-cent sales tax because of that. So other options that were considered, there's a myriad of other options that we went through with our community through the options forums, and they included extending Orchard Hill or expanding Orchard Hill into the size as Southdale, about 625 to 630 student capacity. Renovate the current high school site for a cost of around $60 to $65 million. Adding a new transportation center as we continue to expand our bus fleet. We are running out of room and certainly do not have some capacity, as well as adding additions to the junior highs potentially. So we looked at these options and other options as we went through our options forums to vet this through. Then the bond election occurred in September, and since September, here are some of the steps that we've taken. We, again, the far left starts with the bond referendum. October 23rd, we opened up a survey that we sent out to community members to ask for your input. What are your thoughts about the bond? What are your feelings about the bond? We held 3 district staff forums to ask our staff, give us your feedback, give us your guidance, give us your information about the bond referendum. held 3 listening posts in the community, November 11th to the 17th, to again ask our community the same questions. What resonated with you? What are the challenges that you thought were present within that bond referendum? And that has led us now to these town hall meetings. We had one last night at 6. We're having this one today. We're having another one tonight to be able to ask our community, help us solve some of those challenges that we have as a district. We're asking for your guidance and your input to help us overcome those. So our facility next steps. Again, we've held those listening posts. We tried to look at the root causes. There were 3 that rose to the top with why people felt through the surveys, through the listening posts, why the vote was no. Overall cost was a very significant reason. And it was actually really outpaced the other one by a 2-to-1 margin. Lumping projects together was one that rose into the top 3, as well as clarity and information with some of the lack of information or potential misinformation that people thought was out there. So with that, we know that there are a myriad of other factors, other reasons. Those included transportation challenges at the potential high school sites, other activities going on across the community that could add to the tax rate, the tax base, so on and so forth. So again, we know that there are a myriad of reasons. These 3 rose to the top as the top 3. And then again, we know that our next steps, engaging the community. We understand that without the community support, without the community input, it doesn't have an opportunity to move forward for us to overcome some of the challenges and continue to focus on the educational quality that we expect and we know we want in Cedar Falls. So why are we here? We still face some of those challenges. We know we have facilities that do not meet some of our educational goals. We know those capacity challenges are going to hit us as we continue to go into the future. We don't have enough seats for our students that are going to be coming. We need your help in determining those next steps and establishing those viable solutions. And we do know that in school finance, in Iowa code, any bond election takes 60% plus 1 supermajority. And the school district does not have the scope or the ability to be able to make these decisions. We need our community to be able to support these decisions. Again, nothing has been decided. We're moving to the future. We're looking to the future. We understand that the bond referendum was not successful, so now we're, again, asking our community to take part in this. And before I turn it over to James Seaman, I will say questions that I can answer.
I've got one.
Please.
Where did the number 900 come from? And what's your basis for assuming that you're going to see that kind of growth? And then where is that growth going to be? Is it going to be just in that one quadrant of Cedar Falls? Is it going to be across Cedar Falls? I never really understood where that number came from, how it was derived, and where all those people are going to be.
Yeah, and we actually have that full report online too. We don't have copies with that today, and I apologize for that. We hire a demographer that comes into the district. They are out of Kansas City actually and do that work for districts across the Midwest, really across the country. And they go through very scientific processes. They go through a lot of formula-driven interpretation of data. They work with the city, they work with the school, they work with local builders and determine what is that growth factor going to look like. And then they give you a high factor, a low factor, a moderate factor. And then you have to be able to use that data to be able to inform us as we look to the future. It is future projection, so we can't always guarantee that's the projections. But we've had this company come in now 3 different times over the course of the last, I think, 6 years, and then 4 years, to be able to, 4 to 5 years, to make those projections for us, and they're within about 1% of those whole projections. This past year, we grew 70 students in seats. Where is those growth coming? We're seeing in different segments of our community right now. But when we go by where our elementaries are over capacity, where they were at, and where the projection trend lines start to go up, a lot of that growth is in that western area and that southwestern area where we see some of the biggest growth occurring. But it is occurring in other areas too.
Can you say that's online?
It is, yeah, it is. And it's called RSP Associates Report. So if you just do the search for the RSP report, it can be there. But we will move that someplace a little bit more to be.
And does that projection phase it in, or is it just say there's going to be 900 people someday? Does it tell me what day that's going to be, the time?
Yeah, it phases it in and shows it over a timeline, and actually we'll show a few of those graphs and charts a little bit later as well, where those enrollment projections are.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, please.
I didn't think that you mentioned anything about the location of the building, which is the meeting we were at was brought up.
Yep.
So where does that fit into this?
Yeah, the high school location, the new high school location, proposed location was off of 27th Street, west of the Dome. And that is something that when we went through that site selection, it was a very diligent, lot of work to be able to look at many locations across the community. We looked at, I have to go back with my notes, 8 to 10 different locations to try to pare it down, looking at educational impact, traffic in and out. A lot of people don't still understand that Green Hill Road's extension is going to come out just south of that, where it's going to allow for a major thoroughfare in and out of that property, as well as property, we looked at property outside the city limits. Some property outside of the city limits is less expensive, but the cost to extend utilities then adds so much more to the overall ask that it became too cost ineffective for the district to even look at. What came out of some of our public forums, option forums, is should we look at them all? So from a very high level, we said, sure, we'll look at the mall property, and that was so cost ineffective as well. The amount of acreage just wasn't there that you need, but also the fact that it's all asphalt, that you have to tear some of that up to be able to put in the spaces for green spaces, and we just knew that wasn't feasible. So
I felt, that was brought up, but it seems to be, the question also was that people were not really happy having it by you and I. They were not comfortable with it being so close to you and I. And there, we can come off Green Hill Road there. There's that whole enormous corner of Green Hill Road. We don't, which I think belongs to the people there. The city owns that, I think, on the Green Hill corner.
if you're talking Hudson and Green Hill, that's actually owned by you and I.
By who?
You and I.
Okay, yeah, you and I.
Yep.
And is there no way to trade, or
That
what's your reasoning there?
Yeah, that property actually is assessed and appraised at about $80,000 to $100,000 per acre. And by Iowa code, the way the process works, regions have to go with appraised valuation with land, and there's no way that the district could afford $80,000 an acre. The land just to the north of that sold, I want to say, a year or two ago for about $75,000 an acre, where some of the new construction's occurring. We could not afford $100,000 an acre for 50 acres of land.
Yeah, I don't think people understood that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at it from a personal point of view, I just don't like it sitting there.
Yeah.
You would have it planned.
Exactly.
And so I don't think they
That's a good point.
factored in what there are other things that need to be looked at other than just, I wish it was somewhere else.
Exactly. And we know it's a great problem to have in Cedar Falls, but land values go up, especially bare land values. When we're looking at land that should be about 40 acres in size, when you find 40 acres off the main thoroughfare in Cedar Falls, that dollar amount goes up significantly, because not only do entities like us wish to have that kind of property, but developers wish to have that property as well, because we are a vibrant growing district, which I believe will continue well in the future.
I have one other question which somebody asked me, and I asked what I would ask, and I don't know if this is the time. So they didn't understand, I guess I never heard whether the answer was, where would a new kitchen go? I mean, they had thought that the kitchen in the high school had been recently renovated. I may be wrong or right, I don't know, I'm taking this.
No, it has not been. It's,
okay.
and again, I'm looking at some of our historians in the back, but no, it has not been.
So the new kitchen will be in a new building, is that?
Yeah, that would be the hope.
buildings?
Yeah, that would be the hope. We'd have a central kitchen that would be able to feed out and certainly be at efficient level to be able to best serve our students.
Thank you.
Have you considered, and this might not be the time to mention it, but have you considered any other method of financing this project other than only on the backs of property owners? I was on the Pebble Committee in Waterloo for more than 10 years until I moved to to Cedar Falls and had to resign, so I'm fully aware of the problems you're up against, but it seems to me you're asking a lot of property owners to do it all. I mean, there ought to be a more equitable way, maybe a 1 cent sales tax.
Yeah, in our 1 cent sales tax, similar to what Waterloo has done in most districts, we use that money to invest in our structures and our buildings to ensure that those are of high quality and can certainly meet the needs. When you look 10 years ago, some of our buildings, other buildings were very ill repaired. So we invested those funds to fix up the Lincoln or to build a new Lincoln to be able to fix up Cedar Heights. So that 1 cent sales tax has gone towards those projects. Our physical plant and equipment levy, which is another funding source to use for infrastructure purposes, that goes for preventative maintenance, our roof repairs we do annually, our truck pointing, goes for our technology purchases that we invest in and take great pride in, because you can't have great education without technology embedded within some of that with today's world. So we don't have a lot of flexibility with funding sources. Our hope is to continue to work on how do we make sure that we can cost down the overall ask for anything we do, but again, we don't know what that ask is right now, because we are back here saying, what do we put on the ballot? What do we look at for the future? It might be completely different from what it is now, but we looked at different funding sources and how do we help fund this to make sure that it's not as impactful on property owners.
People I've talked to, that is their main objection, and now we've got a bond issue with Hawkeye, which is probably necessary too, but you know, how much can they bear?
I understand. I appreciate it.
I just wondered if you could explain how they come up with the figure that you need 40 acres. What is in that 40 acres?
I can kind of answer that a little bit, but I'll have James answer that as well. My big picture answer would be, with all the green space, with all the activities, with all the tie-ins, especially when you look at a high school, the size that we have, make sure that you have adequate parking and egress in and out. And I think today's focus is always on to try to make sure we separate bus lanes with student parking and parent drop-off to make sure that you have enough room to get those accomplished. To ensure that we have spaces for outdoor practices and student use. We just started a garden at the high school, so we have that room for garden spaces, and again, those student-led activities and clubs. Without that space around the building, all of a sudden you aren't able to provide the wealth of opportunities that you hope to provide for students.
Yeah, can everybody hear me? This is good, okay. When we looked at the capacity issues, and I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on that piece, but it's really based on looking at comparisons. What are other schools throughout the country doing, and how much space do they need? So really for the size of this high school, minimum is about 40 acres is what's really needed for this. Ideally, the range is closer to about 50 acres for it, but 40 acres is really the minimum. And it does allow some space for added expansion. When we looked at the existing high school site, it's so compact, and the building has been added on many times, that if an expansion was done at the site to bring it in line with where the enrollment projections are going, the site is going to be maxed out, and it's going to cause a lot of issues, as Dr. P was saying, with the circulation, bus loops, all of those things with kind of safety concerns and that. So when we did our analysis, it's really, we look at comparisons, so that way we can understand what other districts are doing, the challenges that they face, and what is the appropriate sizes for the building and also for the acreage of the site.
I just want to, on size, when we say comparison to others, I mean, Cedar Falls is an innovative community. We're changing every day. We don't need to build parking lots. It's not part of the educational mission or drive-through lanes. That's where I really think we got the opportunity to challenge the status quo. What a Grand High School is these days requires 50 acres. That's just an arbitrary number based on comparison. It's not really addressing the need, which is the educational mission. And you can look vertically. Look at urban districts, how do they deal with this problem? We don't need a suburban campus. So that's where I think the wiggle room is. And it's really, when you say you have to fit into a 50-acre spot, that leaves two options.
And I think there's a few more options, but again, then you start getting too far out, and there's a lot of challenges with that as well. You know, I think We don't disagree with that. You know, we want to make sure that we're being wise with our footprint, making sure that we're as efficient as possible. The challenge is we live in, I think, a suburban population, and you know, one of the recommendations was just don't let in your kids drive to school. That's just not practical, I don't think, with our populations, and the fact that our kids now drive everywhere. So we know we're going to have parking lots, because we just can't say you won't drive, because what's going to happen is kids will drive, and then they're going to park places that either are going to be unsafe or illegally parking or other opportunities. But we still have that challenge now at our current site, where kids park, you know, multiple blocks away, or there might be parking spots that they shouldn't be parking in. And we work with our neighbors on that. We work with our community on that. We try to educate our students on that, but it still comes up with those challenges. So, but we don't disagree. We want to make sure that we're good stewards and wise with how we plan.
This may be public knowledge that I'm not aware of. Is there a driving limit, like juniors and above can drive to school? Or is it if you are, I lived my life mostly in Illinois during those time frames, and at my high school, we didn't drive until you had to be a junior, or you had to get special permission to get a parking permit. And I grew up in Crystal Lake, Illinois, which has boomed insanely, and that high school's still there, they built on challenge. So I agree, I mean, where you can cut the line and say, if you're not X age, you're a junior in high school, no, you don't have a parking spot. And then it's more of the liability, in my opinion, of the parents who choose to have their younger children, so to speak, drive to school.
Yeah, ours is 16.
Okay, it is, okay.
It's when they drive, when they get their license. And the city of Iowa is 16 years old.
Yeah.
There are some parking student permits, but again, there's specifics in Iowa code how you get park for student permits. You have to be 15 and a half. You have to be involved in activities. You have to, you have to live outside of a radius within the school system. So we do have some 15 and a half year olds, not a great number, so it's 16. Is the best way to say that.
I would still say the parking is the requirement, or partly a function of the size of the footprint. I mean, we're a blue zones community trying to encourage healthier activities and people walking to school. The reason why I picked where I live is because both schools are within high school walking distance over the elementary. That was one of my factors. I didn't want my kids to have to have a car, and they don't. So, you know, we're a blue zone community, we can find a better way to change behaviors. So I don't think we need to fit the stereotype. We're different, we're a college.
Yeah, and part of that is, you know, the parking lots are part of that space along there, but it's also the green spaces around the high school. Right now, we have so many of our kids that go off campus for different activities because we don't have the space. We don't have the opportunity for them to have some of the participatory opportunities that we want them to have. And that's a challenge. So it's a challenge that we need to come to a solution with, because it is a challenge that we have as a community. And the overall discussion and decision that we are coming to not only today, but over the course of our other meetings is, how do we overcome those challenges as a community? Now, there are a lot of different opinions, and we respect all those opinions. But eventually, we're going to have to come down to something that's going to be a solution to the future that we as a community can support to be able to come to the right opportunities for our kids in the future.
Did you state earlier that there were 3 different surveys or estimates taken over about a 5-year period, trying to estimate how many kids the growth is going to be?
Yep.
These are all done by your, or are they done by separate?
Separate entities. Yeah, it's a different
They're all close.
Yeah, well, and again, they all change and adjust with all the new information. But yeah, we're within 1% of those estimates right now.
Is there going to be much of an impact now that the world knows that we have one of the best internet systems?
You know, we've talked about that, and we know, because again, we work so closely with our city and have constant dialogue. We know they've been getting contacts from different businesses and industries to say, hey, you know, we've heard about the Cedar Falls area. Exactly, yeah, and we are interested. So we know that's going to be an impact. We are in contact with our company to come back and do another demographic study to find out now, knowing what we know, knowing that the last time they did a study about a year and a half ago.
If the city gets contacted and says we want to build a large industrial complex, or we want to bring our business in, you know, you get a heads up from the get-go, so you can try and expand it.
We do. In fact, this is the environment we live in. You know, parents have a lot of mobility. And if you talk to parents and that generation of younger kids, they are looking in a 30-mile radius on where they're going to live. And usually their biggest impact where they choose to live is how successful the schools are and whether or not they believe their schools are of high quality. So a parent might get a job in Waverly, and they're going to look in a 30-mile radius to decide where are we going to live, because we're going to drive and inconvenience us for the best benefit for our students and their education. Businesses are doing much more of that now too. In fact, we're doing business tours where I've hosted different companies or a corporation or a CEO from the Chamber of Alliances ask, maybe from the mayor's ask. We bring them in. They talk to our staff. They talk to them because they want to know. If we ask our employees to move here, we want to know that they're going to have a good quality of life and they're going to have good educational opportunities for their kids. So we work very closely with the city. Please. You know there's a limit to the number of questions.
I just asked Bob if he didn't know the answer, so I guess. How many floors is this going to take? How is this going up or is it going flat?
For what? I'm sorry.
The school, building, the facility.
Oh, we have not, again, we're at square one now, so we have no idea if we're building a new school or what we're doing. We're asking.
Well, what he's asking over there is, you've got to have 50 acres. If you go up, you don't need, your parking can come in.
Right.
I mean, we're out at Western Home. We're building the next thing they're really going to build, 3 stories tall.
Exactly.
Because you just have so much land and there's no more.
Exactly.
And, I'll say this, I walked to school both ways and it was 25 miles. That we really did. We ran up and down 3 flights of stairs and that was how we got our exercise, I guess. And I see up, I don't see down.
That's exactly right. And anything, you look at Lincoln as a classic example of that structure, and that was really one of the newest buildings we built here. It's gone up, it goes to 2nd stories. And I would anticipate if the high school comes out of all these discussions and these further discussions, my guess is it'll be a 2-story building, just due to the fact that you want to bring in the square footage. You don't want that sprawl, number one, because it's less expensive to go up than it is to go out. Number 2, you can maximize and limit the amount of land that you need. Number 3, you always want to understand and think about the 50-year impact. I'd rather have spots and spaces in a building that you can expand the building outward, and you have enough land to be able to make those decisions, because we don't know what's going to happen necessarily 25 years from now, and what additional space we might want or wish we had around the building. I would say in and now going back, when the current high school was built, 1958? 1950.
Completed in 1953.
Current building built in 1953. It sat on 14 acres. The school had the opportunity to buy all the land going west over to Hudson. And at the time, the decision was, 14 acres is plenty of land. We don't need any more. I don't want to be 50 years from now having somebody sit in the room and say, there was once this guy, Dr. Packey, that had the opportunity to get 50 acres of land that chose to get 20 acres of land, and now we're in a huge position as a community. We need to make better decisions in the future. I don't want that to happen. We need to plan accordingly and make sure I'd rather have a few extra acres and not enough acres to do my opinion. Please.
You mentioned, we're talking about space and land and that kind of stuff. What have you done as far as investigating sharing facilities with the university? You talk about practice fields and that kind of stuff.
Lots.
Is there possibility for that? Is that where jurisdictions are different here?
NCAA rules and regulations have some challenges associated with that, but we do a great job now. It's really a kind of a no-cost agreement where they utilize our softball, baseball, complex. We utilize the Don't Coach ball games, and what they pay us is what we pay them. So it's a great working agreement. You have to, one of the challenges, now we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, one of the challenges is you have to have some of those fields with a fence around them if you're going to participate at the same time. It's one of those weird, unique things. But again, we're big enough that we can share those and set our schedules differently, where we might need some of those practice fields or at different times when they usually utilize them. So there's been a lot of discussion on how we can coordinate those.
And that's doable.
It is. Yeah, it is. Again, it's challenging. It's one of those aspects where anytime you look at efficiencies, there's challenges. But if you don't have the mindset to overcome those challenges, nothing will happen.
I just wanted to refer to, people saying about high school being too close to college, and we gotta remember NU used to be right next door to UNI. And a lot of our kids already interact with a lot of college students now. AP classes and stuff, so, I don't think that'd be a problem.
One of the things that we really pride ourselves on, we have about 600 college kids that come into our schools every year for different activities, different events, and it's a great relationship. It's one of those things, our current high school has, and since we're kind of focused on high school, I think it has 16 open doors throughout the day just because of the ebb and flow and the additions and the challenges associated with that high school. Obviously, if the decision from all these discussions came to a new building, that would be able to be designed and constructed with that one entrance safety requirements and focus that we currently have in a lot of our other buildings that have either been recently remodeled or built. We have sections of the current high school, you have to go outside to get to. There's no other option. That's the only way you can go. Again, we're here to ask for solutions for the future. I'm not opposed to asking or answering any questions about the past bond, but really the past bond now is in the past. We're looking, what can we do collectively to continue to move forward as a community to overcome some of the challenges that we have before us.
One gentleman brought up the fact that NU High was right next to UNI. Size-wise, what does that compare to Sioux Falls? As far as the number of students.
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that.
I mean, I always thought that was just a fairly much lab school, thinking school. This is where the college kids come and practice on when they're teaching, and et cetera, but there again, I went to home.
I don't know how large that school was, or
Just slightly less than 400 K-12.
K-12 400s. Our high school building right now, our capacity, or we have about 1,150, 1,160 at our high school. Anticipated growth being about 1,350, 1,360 in the next 10 years.
I think a lot of people were worried that when they have sporting events, they have concerts, they have the sports show, they have whatever up at UNI, and they have anything at the high school that's the same day, same time, and the traffic congestion and the mess that's going to happen. Do we have enough police officers to handle that? Do we have enough firefighters to handle anything major that happens? Well, if it's real major, you're not going to.
Right.
It's just a camp.
Some of that's just coordination of schedules as well, which we do now in a lot of different ways to make sure that are we mindful of which activities and which quarters of town and segments of town. We have to be much more diligent with that in the future as well to ensure. One of the biggest conflicts, because most of the conflicts aren't major, when you look at them being weekend events and things like that, the major conflicts are probably going to be high school football playoffs, and then what do we do to accommodate that? Especially if we look at common green spaces, common areas that we can share back and forth. That would be difficult, especially if we potentially share parking lots or parking facilities. We probably couldn't either have schools that do professional development on those days or do something differently for that one time when that happens annually. So there's ways to work around that. It's just making sure that we have the dialogue and the collaborative framework to accomplish it. And right now, I can tell you, UNI is open to all those discussions. The city is open to all those discussions. This is a school district. We want to do what's best, most prudent, most efficient, so we can move forward.
And
Please.
If and when you ever get this all done, what other costs are there going to be? Operation costs, you're going to need more teachers, you're going to need more, how much you got of that in bondage to cover all that? Or when you get hit with a bunch more,
Yeah, that can't be paid.
increasing costs?
That can't be paid for through a bond election. We have silos in the education world, so our general fund has to pay, and that's the supplemental state aid.
But it all comes out of tax money, right?
No, that comes out of state aid, so the
And that comes
majority
out
of
of
that.
tax money, it's all taxes.
Well,
There's not a tree that the state has that gives.
no, yeah, it comes out of the, not property taxes locally. There's a funding formula, but yeah, you're right, it comes out of taxes to pay for public education. But again, that's kind of our system that we're built on in America. public education.
How much is that going to go up? Is the state going to give us more money because we got a new building?
They'll give us more money because we have increasing enrollment. It's all based on your population students. So the more students you get, the more classes you need to have because you need more teachers because you have more kids.
Well, you're 900 people, that's for K through 12?
10 years, yeah.
70 people a class?
Rough, that's
So we're talking 200 more people in the high school?
roughly, yeah.
How does that compare to, back when I went to school there, we had 1,500 kids going there.
Yeah, and
And it was a smaller building.
And that's a question that we get, and we try to answer that throughout the process in the bond election information cycle, as well as the public forums and options forums. Back in the 1970s, a lot of people compare it to the early 80s. We had 1,500 kids in that building, and the answer is we did. But as you can probably recall, most of those classrooms held 30 kids, or sometimes even 35 kids in seats and rows, and it was kind of that direct instruction model. The world's shifted, education has shifted, we don't do that as much. The laws changed as well with how we serve and provide education for children with special needs. Back then, students with special needs didn't necessarily come to public education, public buildings. Right now, at just the high school alone, we actually have 16 to 18 classrooms dedicated just to serving students with special needs. You just do the quick math on that. If you had 30 kids in a classroom back in 1978, now our special needs classrooms, we usually try to cap at 8 to 10 students just because of the scope and the size and the challenges. You go 16 classrooms times 20 student difference, that comes out to about 320 kids less. And that's about then 1,200 capacity out of school. You can just do the quick math there, let alone get into all the arguments about now we have server rooms and technology and computer labs that we didn't necessarily have back at that time frame either. It's just there's a whole shift in focus and the fact that we pride ourselves on being a community school district that really knows our students. We focus on all of our students' needs to help our most advanced students reach even greater levels. We help our struggling learners get even higher and become great achievers and great learners. And that takes opportunities that have rooms that are flexible and adaptable, that come with small groups and large group opportunities. There's just education shifted. Yes, sir?
How far out on 27th Street is that property? I think there's a feeling that it's like a corner of 27th and Hudson.
Oh, no, the dome, there's a parking lot, there's now lighted fields, there's other fields, and then it's to the west of that area. Yeah, kind of where the rugby fields are at, as well as a little bit further west of that. So, yeah.
So it's out
West of the tower.
It's not like it's right on top of the campus.
No, there's separation there. But,
I'm just saying.
yeah, exactly. And again, good questions. And we can stick around afterwards to help answer some of these questions. We want to make sure that we're aware of everybody's time. I was supposed to take about 10 minutes, so I apologize for that. We're a little bit longer into that. But again, we will be around afterwards to help answer questions. James, I know, is going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we have, and we certainly want your input on the tabletop discussion too.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Petit. I'm going to go very quick. Actually, I'm just going to share a couple slides with you. And afterwards, all of this information was presented in a master plan document that we did in 2013. It's available on the district website. There's a couple copies up here. So afterwards, if you want to discuss that further, I'd be happy to go into the detail of the real specifics. Really, today, though, we want to hear your input. We were essentially kind of starting from scratch. We want to come up with a new plan that's viable. And we want your input on it. So what's really important is that we do this table activity portion. And it's going to take about a half hour to get through that because we want to get your ideas out today before we start anything, before we come up with any plans. We want to hear your thoughts as far as what we should do when we move forward here. So I'm only going to take about 5 minutes. I guess I asked if you hold the questions until after we're done with the table activity, because I think a lot of some of the answers may come out of that activity, and there's going to be a chance at the end to everybody everybody to report out to the entire group, so that way we can have some dialogue about next steps. So just really quickly, we did this process in 2013. It was over about a 4-month period. We did 2 things. We toured every single building. So we went through and we looked at what you currently have here in the district, and we looked at the conditions. The other thing we did is we had some focus groups with all the principals. We had focus group with the Building Facilities Committee and the board members to really understand the challenges that the district is facing. So it was really this quantitative and qualitative look at it. We looked at the numbers. When we're doing it quantitatively, we only can look at comparisons at this point. In the master plan, this was prior to any plans or any solutions that came up. So this is really understanding what is the current situation here. And then qualitative part of that is talking to people, talking to the principals, the people who use the building to understand the challenges. And so we look for consistency between those 2 things. So 2 major issues we found was shortage of space compared to national averages. And again, we only, at that stage, we only can look at comparisons. I agree that when you get into the design of things, you can be more innovative. We can think out of the box a little bit. And hopefully today, we can, some of those ideas will come up. The other piece is that the enrollment. And so looking at the projections over that 10-year period, the projections show a 900 student growth. So already there is, in some schools, a shortage of space. And then when you look at the projections, that's going to exacerbate the situation. The second item is alignment of facilities with educational goals. So Dr. Petit was talking about where the district is going educationally. And so we talked to the principals and the administration to understand what is happening, what is changing, and wanted to understand how the spaces need to align with that. Well, a lot of different things are happening now. It's no longer the stand at the front of the classroom and teach to 30 students. It's much more project-based, hands-on, a lot of different activities. It's more student-centered now. So that requires some different types of spaces. It requires flexibility in space. So when we went through to evaluate the facilities, we were looking for that, looking for opportunities. Are the facilities flexible enough for the educational goals of the district? And so we saw some challenges there with the alignment of the educational goals. The building tours, I'm just going to go through this very quickly. One thing that we did notice that your district should be proud of is we've toured many schools throughout the country, and the buildings are very well maintained. And that was one thing I was really shocked to see how well maintained they were. A lot of times I go into districts with older buildings, and I see a lot of disrepair. So they are very well maintained. Some things such as furniture is kind of old. Those are things that would need to be updated. A couple of things we noticed was North Cedar and Orchard Hill are in definite need of building upgrades. The support spaces are on the small side here. Many areas in the high school are in need of renovation. And the building has been added on multiple times over the year. And Dr. Petit was talking about how you actually have to go outside to get inside in one part. And so the problem when a building is added on many times is it becomes very fragmented, and it becomes challenging to add on more pieces. And so that causes a problem, and it's a real problem with the flow of the building and the security of the building. So that was a key thing. Several schools were designed, some of the newer buildings were designed with some flex spaces that are in alignment with the educational goals, but have, because of the capacity issues, they have been reappropriated as just classroom spaces. So they've lost that flexibility of having that space. We went into these workshops with the principals, as I mentioned, and some of the key things that we heard from them were things about leveraging partnerships. The grade configuration of the high school is unique, that it's only a 10, 11, 12, but it works for the district. They felt very strongly that it works for the district. One opportunity, the PLC's professional learning communities, is something that has been extremely effective. And those things, having or supporting PLCs require certain spaces for that. requires spaces for teachers to be able to come together to work in their PLC groups. Really, there's a lack of space for those things. A couple of other things, all school buildings need air conditioning. Not every building has air conditioning. Spaces are needed to support multiple learning activities. As I mentioned before, learning is much different, and there's a lot of different things that the teachers are doing with the students, so the spaces need to support many different activities. And then several of the school buildings are too small for the growing enrollment. So I'm going to stop there. I do have a lot of backup on the projections, and then I'd be happy to talk afterwards. I do want to move to the activity, this table activity, and then afterwards we can take some questions further. So I'm going to skip ahead here just for the sake of time. And so what we want to do next is we want to do a brainstorming activity with you. And we need your help to solve this problem. So we would like for you to work at your table in groups of 5 to 6 people. So if you're at a table with maybe 3 or 2, if we could just ask that you kind of move and combine. So maybe this table join with this table, and just try to come together to 5 or 6 to make this most effective. The one thing that we just ask is please be respectful to everybody's point of view. And everybody's coming at this from a different angle. So we have some prompts that we're going to guide you through. And we just ask you to be respectful as you work through this. There are 4 main questions that we're going to have you work through. The first one is to discuss what the key concern number 1 was, which is the overall cost. And so there are some guiding questions. We're handing out right now some instructions, and they have guiding questions on how to approach this. The second key concern is clarity of information. So we want you to discuss what information is critical for you to make a decision about school facilities. The number 3 question is lumping projects together. That was a key concern. So there's some prompts on there to address that problem. And the 4th item is opportunities for solving problems. So we'd like you to work through those guiding questions there. Again, sky's the limit with this. We want to hear all ideas. In your group, on the instruction, choose one person to be the scribe, so one person who's going to take all the notes in the group. And then choose one person to be a time limit. We have 30 minutes for this whole activity. So one person is going to have to keep track of the time. And there's a time limit for each of the questions. Make sure you follow that time so you can get through all of the questions. So go ahead.